Trucks are supposed to be built tough, designed to haul heavy loads, tackle rough terrain, and keep going for hundreds of thousands of miles. But not all engines are created equal. Some were so poorly designed that they cost owners thousands in repairs, left them stranded on the side of the road, and ruined the reputation of the trucks they powered. Today, we're counting down the 10 worst truck engines of all time. Engines that were underpowered, unreliable, or just outright disasters waiting to happen. If you're thinking about buying a used truck, you'll want to stay far away from these ticking time bombs. And before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Rev Rides. We break down the best and worst machines ever made. 10. 1978 Oldsmobile 5.7 LV8 diesel. GM's diesel disaster. In the late 1970s, rising fuel prices had American automakers scrambling for more fuel-efficient solutions. Diesel engines, known for their better fuel economy, seemed like the perfect answer. But instead of engineering a true diesel engine from scratch, GM took a disastrous shortcut. They modified an existing gasoline engine and tried to pass it off as a durable diesel. The result? One of the worst diesel engines ever made. The 5.7 LV8 diesel, used in Oldsmobile and some GM trucks, suffered from weak internal components that weren't strong enough to handle diesel combustion pressure. The head bolt stretched and failed, leading to blown head gaskets and catastrophic engine damage. The fuel system was equally terrible. Faulty injection pumps and poorly designed fuel filters led to frequent stalling and hard starts, leaving truck owners stranded. Adding insult to injury, GM didn't properly educate mechanics on how to repair diesel engines, leading to even more failures due to improper servicing. Many trucks powered by this engine didn't even make it past 50,000 miles before needing major repairs or complete engine replacements. The 5.7L diesel was such a disaster that angry customers filed class action lawsuits against GM, forcing them to buy back many of these vehicles. This colossal failure ruined GM's reputation in the diesel market, and to this day, it remains a textbook example of how not to build a diesel engine. If you ever see a truck with this engine, run the other way. 9. 2003 to 2007 Ford 6.0L Power Stroke, the engine that ruined Ford's diesel reputation. When Ford introduced the 6.0L Power Stroke, they promised more power and better emissions compliance. Instead, they delivered one of the most failure-prone diesel engines ever built. One of the biggest issues was weak head bolts, which stretched under high boost levels, leading to blown head gaskets and overheating. The EGR cooler was a disaster, frequently clogging, cracking, and causing coolant leaks. Injectors failed regularly, and the variable geometry turbo, VGT, suffered from carbon buildup, leading to sluggish performance and black smoke. These problems led to constant breakdowns, massive repair bills, and multiple lawsuits. Ford eventually cut ties with Navistar, the engine's manufacturer, but by then, the damage was done. Today, unless a 6.0L Power Stroke has been bulletproof with major upgrades, it's best to avoid it at all costs. 8. 2008 to 2010 Ford 6.4L Power Stroke, the follow-up failure. After the 6.0L Power Stroke disaster, Ford and Navistar introduced the 6.4L Power Stroke, but instead of fixing past issues, they created another nightmare. The twin-turbo setup promised power, but was plagued with frequent turbo failures, and the cramp engine bay meant repairs often required removing the entire truck cab, leading to sky-high labor costs. The diesel particulate filter, DPF, constantly clogged, forcing frequent reg-ins that wrecked fuel economy, which was already one of the worst in diesel truck history. On top of that, the radiators leaked, and some engines even suffered from cracked pistons, requiring costly full rebuilds. By 2011, Ford cut ties with Navistar and built their own diesel engine, leaving the 6.4L Power Stroke as one of the least desirable diesels on the used market. If you don't want constant breakdowns and paying for repair bills, avoid this engine at all costs. 7. 1994 to 2002 GM 6.5L Turbo Diesel, the weakest turbo diesel ever. When GM introduced the 6.5L Turbo Diesel, they hoped it would compete with Ford's 7.3L Power Stroke and Dodge's 5.9L Cummins. But instead of delivering a reliable workhorse, GM built one of the weakest and most failure-prone turbo diesels ever put in a truck. One of the biggest flaws was the electronic injection pump, which was notorious for failure. Owners frequently dealt with random stalling, rough idling, and complete engine shutdowns, often with no warning. To make matters worse, the pump was mounted on the engine, exposing to extreme heat and leading to even faster failure rates. GM later introduced a remote-mounted cooling solution, but by then, the damage to its reputation was already done. Another major issue was overheating. Unlike the 7.3L Power Stroke, which had a solid cooling system, the 6.5L struggled with poor heat dissipation, causing blown head gaskets, cracked heads, and warped blocks, especially under heavy loads. Towing anything near the engine's rated capacity often resulted in engine failure long before it should have. The power output was another disappointment, producing only 215 horsepower and 440 lb-ft of torque. It was already weak compared to competitors, and as emissions regulations tightened, the 6.5L turbo diesel became even less efficient, leading to poor fuel economy and sluggish performance. By the early 2000s, GM had no choice but to retire the 6.5L, replacing it with the far superior Duramax 6.6L. Today, trucks equipped with the 6.5L turbo diesel are mostly avoided by serious diesel owners, as the cost of maintaining and repairing these engines is simply not worth it. If you're looking for a durable diesel truck, this is one engine you do not want to rely on. 6. 2003, the 2005 Dodge 5.7L Hemi V8, a legendary name, a flawed engine. The Hemi name carries a legendary reputation, and when Dodge introduced a 5.7L Hemi V8 in their trucks, expectations were sky high. This engine was supposed to combine muscle car performance with truck durability, but early versions from 2003 to 2005 were plagued with serious reliability issues that left many truck owners frustrated. One of the biggest problems was valve seat failure. Due to poor manufacturing and thermal expansion issues, the valve seats could drop into the cylinders, causing catastrophic engine failure. This led to misfires, rough idling, and in worse cases, completely destroying the engine. Unfortunately, there was no warning before it happened, making it one of the most feared issues with early Hemis. Another major weak point was the exhaust manifold bolts, which were known to snap over time. This caused exhaust leaks, leading to a loss of power, poor fuel economy, and annoying ticking noises from under the hood. Dodge never properly addressed this issue, and many owners had to spend hundreds, if not thousands, on repairs. Dodge eventually refined the Hemi in later years, fixing many of these early issues. But for those who own a 2003 to 2005 model, the unreliability, constant repairs, and expensive rebuilds made this one of the most disappointing truck engines ever. Unless it has been meticulously maintained and upgraded, early 5.7L Hemis are best avoided if you're looking for a dependable workhorse. 5. 1999, the 2002 Jeep 4.7L V8, the overheating nightmare. The Jeep 4.7L V8, also found in Dodge trucks and SUVs, was plagued with reliability issues, mainly due to overheating and oil sludge buildup. The cooling system was poorly designed, with an undersized radiator and weak water pump, causing chronic overheating. Many owners face warped cylinder heads, blown head gaskets, and coolant leaks, often leading to complete engine failure. Oil sludge was another major problem. The 4.7L was highly sensitive to oil changes, and missing even a few intervals could clog vital oil passages, leading to knocking, lifter failure, and internal damage. Timing chain guides also wore out prematurely, causing rattling noises and eventual engine failure. With weak internals, costly repairs, and a reputation for constant breakdowns, the 4.7L V8 is one of the worst engines ever put in a Jeep. If you see one for sale, think twice before taking the risk. For 2004 to 2010 Nissan 5.6L V8, the engine that couldn't last. When Nissan introduced the 5.6L V8, they hoped to help them compete with the big players in the truck market, Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Found in the Nissan Titan, Armada, and Pathfinder, this engine promised solid power, smooth performance, and reliability. But in reality, it ended up being one of Nissan's biggest disappointments in the truck world. On paper, the 5.6L V8 had strong numbers, 317 horsepower and 385 lb-ft of torque, which put it right in line with competitors. But under the hood, it was hiding serious design flaws that made it a nightmare to own in the long run. One of the biggest issues was timing chain tensioner failure. The timing chains in this engine were prone to premature wear, and once the tensioner started failing, they would cause rattling noises, poor performance, and eventually complete engine failure. The worst part? Fixing the timing chain system required expensive labor and thousands of dollars in repairs. By the time Nissan realized how troublesome this engine was, it was already too late. The 5.6 LV8 had cemented its reputation as one of the least reliable truck engines, and many owners were left with massive repair bills. While Nissan did improve the design in later models, the 2004 to 2010 versions remain some of the most problematic engines ever put in a truck. If you're in the market for a used Nissan Titan, make sure you check the engine history. This is one truck engine you don't want to gamble on. 3. 2000-2006 Toyota 3.0 LV6 diesel 1K DFDV. A rare Toyota failure. Toyota is known for reliability, but the 1K DFDV 3.0L diesel, found in the Hilux, Land Cruiser Prado, and Hi-Ace, proved to be one of their biggest missteps. A major flaw was injector failure. The seals degraded quickly, allowing fuel to mix with oil, leading to excessive engine wear and early failure. Many owners had to replace entire engines before hitting 100,000 miles. Another huge issue was cracking cylinder heads. The cooling system wasn't strong enough, and under heavy loads, the aluminum had developed stress fractures, causing coolant loss, overheating, and costly repairs. On top of that, the turbo system was prone to failure, with carbon buildup causing power loss and expensive replacements. By the time Toyota replaced this engine with the 2.8 LGD series, the damage was done. While some well-maintained 1K DFDV engines lasted, many owners faced massive repair bills. If you're considering a used Hilux or Prado, make sure this engine has been properly serviced, or avoid it altogether. 2. 2003 to 2007 Ford 4.2 LV6. The gutless gas engine. The Ford 4.2 LV6, used in F-150s and E-Series vans, was supposed to be an affordable, fuel-efficient alternative to Ford's V8 engines. Instead, it turned out to be one of the most underpowered and unreliable truck engines ever produced. One of its biggest issues was chronic intake manifold gasket failure. The gaskets were poorly designed, leading to coolant leaks that caused overheating, misfires, and eventual engine failure. If the coolant mixed with the oil, it wreaked havoc on the bearings and internals, leading to a complete bottom-end failure. The head gaskets weren't any better. Many owners experienced coolant loss and overheating, with some engines failing before reaching 100,000 miles. The timing cover gasket was another weak point, often leaking coolant into the oil, which accelerated internal wear. To make things worse, this engine was severely underpowered. With only 202 horsepower and 252 lb-ft of torque, it struggled to move even lightly loaded trucks, making towing almost impossible compared to its V8 counterparts. By the time Ford phased out the 4.2 LV6, it had already built a reputation as one of the weakest and most failure-prone engines in Ford truck history. If you're looking at an early 2000s Ford F-150, avoid this engine at all costs, unless you enjoy constant breakdowns and expensive repairs. 1. 2008 to 2011 Max 47, the king of bad diesel engines. If there's one truck engine that deserves the title of worst ever, it's the 2008 to 2011 Max 47. This engine was so unreliable that it led to lawsuits, bankrupt trucking companies, and massive financial losses for Navistar. The biggest flaw was Navistar's decision to avoid using DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, forcing the engine to recirculate exhaust gases through an overworked EGR system. This led to constant clogging, overheating, and premature engine wear. The EGR cooler failures were so common that many trucks experienced multiple breakdowns before hitting 100,000 miles. Another major issue was oil dilution, where raw fuel mixed with engine oil, leading to accelerated wear and early engine failure. On top of that, even simple repairs were a nightmare, often requiring removing the truck's cab, turning basic fixes into expensive repairs. Navistar faced massive lawsuits and a $135 million class action settlement over the Max 47's failures. By 2015, the engine was completely abandoned, and Navistar had to partner with Cummins just to restore its reputation. Today, the Max 47 is widely regarded as one of the worst diesel engines ever made. If you see one for sale, run the other way. There you have it, the 10 worst truck engines of all time. These engines cost owners thousands in repairs, left them stranded, and some even ruined entire brands. Which engine do you think was the absolute worst? Drop a comment below. And if you love learning about the best and worst engines in automotive history, don't forget to subscribe to Rev Rides, your go-to source for everything on four wheels.